Hello everyone. So in this lecture we are going to study about magnetic material. We will first begin by looking at traditional view of magnetism, that is classical magnetic view of magnetism, and then we will use those concepts to discuss various type of magnetic material in a very brief manner, because to discuss magnetic material it itself is a huge area and we would not like to do that in this course, but we will give you a brief idea what different magnetic materials are and what are their corresponding properties. So to begin with, let us first look at what is the traditional view of magnetism. Okay, so there are few additional geometries that we use to produce especially a very high magnetic field, and these are what called as solenoid and toroids, and they actually consist of magnetic material which we are going to discuss sometime later, especially the ferromagnetic material. They consist of current I. These coils are having current I, and then current I is actually wound on a wire and there is a magnetic material here. Okay, so this magnetic material around which the wires are, which carry the current I, tightly wound, and which with a very narrow spacing between them, between the wires. And for the ideal case of infinite long solenoid, this is solenoid, and we are not discuss in the field of solenoid, which we will do very shortly. The field of solenoids are entirely inside that of magnetic material, and they are all forming line along the axis of solenoid. Okay, solenoid is essentially that fill in, so they all form line. Okay, and these are horizontal line and there are no field outside. Okay, and when solenoid is infinite large, there is no field outside. A different form of magnetic field generation that is used in some of the magnetic circuit is toroid. A toroid especially consists of coil that has been wound in the form of magnetic material that is bent. So it is a bent coil around which you are actually winding the current carrying wire. So when you do that, magnetic field turn out to be completely within the coil. There are no magnetic field outside the coil. So this toroid is specially useful for confining magnetic field inside given coil configuration. So to give you what a magnetic field of solenoid, consider the following Ampere law. So assume that infinite solenoid here, just a second. Okay, so assume a solenoid which is having an infinite length, which carry a current I. Okay, but since this is infinite solenoid, we can actually characterize this by talking about what is the current per width or per length, or equivalently the number of turns, right? Each turn carrying a current, and so you can actually call this current per length. Instead of that, you can also talk about number of turns per length. Okay, so multiply by I could give you the amount of current per length. Okay, so if you say that I have 10 turns per length, instead of that you can also talk about number of turns. So suppose you are having 10 turns per meter. Okay, and current is around 1 ampere. Okay, so these are just random number which I am picking from my head. These are not actual values, so just to give you what idea here is. So here, if the number of turn is 10 per meter, then there is current of 10 ampere, suppose I am assuming in 10 ampere, then each turn the current per meter will be 10 into 10, that is 100 amperes per meter. So you can actually think of this solenoid with a wire which are wound tightly around the solenoid. On the outer surface of the solenoid has some sort of current flowing around the solenoid. So for such solenoid, if you want to find out the field, remember again the solenoid length is very large, which is I'm approximating as an infinite long solenoid. So an infinite long solenoid, if you are at any point, right, there would be a contribution of magnetic field from one half, and there will be equal contribution of magnetic field from another half. And if you think of the solenoids as consisting of current carrying wire which are stacked ones upon the other, you can see magnetic field on the axis coming from this would be actually along this way, and there would be another turn on the bottom which will produce a magnetic along this way. Okay, so if you look at the given current direction would be opposite here, and total magnetic contribution along this axis of the solenoid. So this is how you can actually calculate the field of solenoid, which we are not going to do here. What we will do is we will assume an ampere loop. Okay, this is my ampere loop. We are going to assume ampere loop here of some length L. This length is L, doesn't matter. So we will assume an ampere loop of length L and a certain width W. So in this loop, what you have to observe is, if this infinite long solenoid, then the magnetic field is only this path. There will not be any magnetic field outside. So H here tells us there is no magnetic field outside that of solenoid, and all the magnetic field is there here inside the solenoid. So this is an approximation which is very good when you your length of solenoid is very large, especially compared to the diameter. So with an ampere loop, that would be my total current. What would be my total current? So if the length of the path is L, then the total current will be Ni. Here N is number of turns per meter, multiply with the current will give you total number turn, and then you can talk about NIL. Okay, so if you were to consider N, the total number of turns inside the this meter, then it would be Ni if you are considering 1 meter. So these are the different way of writing the same expression. So what you have to understand is that each turn is contributing a current of I ampere, and if there are total number of n turns in the ampere loop that you have considered, the total number of total current will be N total into I. Okay, so that would be the left hand side of ampere law. And if you have forgotten ampere law, this is the ampere law, right? H dl is equals to total current enclosed. So we have actually obtained right hand side total current enclosed. For the left hand side, you can observe that there is no magnetic field along the path of W. So because the field is all perpendicular and along the axis, so there will be one field which would be H, and the length of that one is H into L. So this would be equals to total current enclosed, and therefore the magnetic field H, which would be along the axis of solenoid, will be given by total number of turn in that loop I by L. So you can talk in terms of total current or turn per length, and then say N into I. So if you want to obtain the B field, assuming that, let us go ahead and look at magnetic material. So we have already discussed dipole. If you remember what a dipole was, electric dipole was that two charges which are separated by a certain distance, and the field far away from the dipole who are evaluated, it was given by certain expression. And interestingly, the same situation actually occurred for the wire that has carrying a current I. Again, far field were also essentially given by same expression. The expression were all the same as that of dipole. Okay, so which actually means that I can actually think of current carrying loop as an equivalent dipole, except that now I have I am calling this an equivalent dipole, except that I do not have electric charges, right? What I have is frictional magnetic charges. So I have fictitious magnetic charges of plus q m and negative qm, and then these charges would produce a magnetic field which are exactly same as that of current carrying loop. The far field are essentially the same. So these are actually two ways in which people think of magnetic material or magnetic dipole, especially the diamagnetic materials are made up of magnetic dipole. So one is to think of them as tiny current loops. Okay, one has to think them as a tiny current loop carrying a certain current I and generating a magnetic field. Okay, so if you take a material and you will find out a lot of such loops inside, or you can think of them as an equivalent magnetic charges, no doubt that these magnetic charges are fictitious because they can't be isolated and found in nature. But you can think of these magnetic charges, fictitious magnetic charges, as the same configuration as that of electric dipole, which would produce exactly the same field in identically the field as that of current loop. In fact, calling term of these magnetic charges used to be poles, and this is how the law of attractions are formulated earlier, like poles repel and unlike poles attract. So poles would actually refer as poles of magnetic material. So if you think of matter, right, any magnetic material, just as we did for dielectric material, you can think of magnetic material as consisting of tiny current loops. Where are these current loops coming from? Well, matter is made up of atom, right? An atom have an inner nucleus which is positively charged, and outer electrons which is negatively charged, but it would be moving around. Classical view of atom that of atom moving around in a given orbit, right? So it would be moving around in an orbit generating a tiny loop of current, because if you imagine yourself at a particular point where you can see yourself at this point, right? Suppose you are here and you are watching, so you will see that the charge is moving with a certain velocity, or a charge is moving with a certain frequency and crossing this particular point corresponding to a current. Okay, and there will be, of course, billions and billions of such atoms inside any microscopic large magnetic material. So when you take a piece of magnetic material, there will be large number of billions and billions of such atoms, and each atom is essentially a tiny current loop. So the magnetic field that are produced by each of these current loop will add up in the case of permanent magnet. Okay, so permanent magnet are those which possess these tiny current loop producing magnetic field that would actually add up coherently. If you take a magnet which is what you know, a fridge magnet or a refrigerator magnet, then it will actually attract. And if you take some iron fillings and then place these magnets slightly above it, then they would actually form a certain pattern, and this how we would actually visualize the magnetic lines of force or magnetic field by taking the magnet, a bar magnet or a round magnet, and then placing an iron filling, and you will that the iron filling would actually form a certain loop around the bar magnet. And these are no current here, means there are no current here, that is there is no externally current here. What we have instead are those tiny little loops inside the magnetic material contributing to overall magnetic field. Of course, to contribute to overall magnetic field, you would of course accept that these tiny current loops must be aligned in some way, right? So this must be aligned in some tiny way. Only when they are aligned and there will be a net magnetic material. If they are not aligned, they are completely randomly oriented, then the magnetic moment of each of this current loop is completely oriented randomly, and then there will not be any net magnetic field. Permanent magnet are those which actually have some magnetic field, and the reason is simple, because they have these tiny current loops is said which are all aligned with each other. But please remember, if you take a piece of magnetic material, you will actually find a large number of billions and billions of such magnetic dipoles. So each current carrying loop is actually a dipole. Okay, of course not many of such permanent magnets are found, and even those permanent magnets that we find are dependent on temperature. That if you start increasing the temperature by heating up the magnet after certain critical temperature, okay, the magnetism actually break down and magnetic material do not remain magnetic anymore. So this is the problem that would happen even for permanent magnet. So in a sense, there is no permanent magnet independent of temperature, but for room temperature or for temperature of operation that we are interested, the magnetic moments are permanent in the sense that there would be contribution to an external magnetic field. However, not many materials are lucky enough to have their moments aligned with each other, so there they do not actually possess magnetic field. So these two way of thinking about magnetic material is to think one of them as a current loop having a certain magnetic moment m, or you can think them as a fictitious bar magnet with plus magnetic field charge, fictitious charge at one end, and negative magnetic field magnetic charge minus qm, again fictitious at the another end. So the far field that are produced by these two configurations are exactly the same. And for our purpose, one can model this magnetic field either by postulating a current loop, which is what one would find in magnetic material made up of matter. Okay, so you can equivalently think them as a charge. Of course, the reason is also historical, but if you forget history, the reason is mathematical. Because when you think of magnetic charge, then whatever that we have studied in terms of Laplace equation or Poisson equation, they can be applied directly to evaluate the magnetic field of these configurations. Well, with one fact that magnetic field, the del H is not equals to 0, means this potential concept can't be applied everywhere in this space. So they should applied in only those cases where the magnetic field is 0. So with these idea, or why one should consider two types of view of magnetism, we will then look a little more detail into the modeling of magnetic material. Okay, So model magnetic material we introduced, such as dielectric material. Remember what we had, this dielectric material, we had these dielectric movements, and then we found, or we said that we introduced a quantity called as polarization, which was supposed to be dipole moment, electric dipole moment per volume. And we introduced P, and then we introduced new vector called D. We relate D equals to E and P, and then we introduced this is what we did for dielectric material. Now we are going to do this for magnetic material, so which means that we are going to look at magnetic dipole moment per unit volume, called that has a certain vector M, just as we have polarization. So we will have magnetization vector, and that magnetization vector will relate B and H. Okay, so let's do that. So we define magnetization M as magnetic dipole per unit volume. And for the case of permanent magnets such as bar magnet, you can imagine this, remember equivalent dipole thing that we were talking about. So you can imagine them having a positive and a negative fictitious charge, forming a dipole moment, right? And each of them can be thought as a north and south pole. This is traditional view of magnetism, having two poles, north and south. North corresponds to positive fictitious positive charge, and south corresponds to negative fictitious charge. So for this one, if you assume that each of them has a length L or delta L, each of them has an area of delta A, then the volume occupied by each dipole, this is length, area is delta A, then the volume occupied is delta L into delta A. And one cannot actually talk of group of dipoles, okay? So you are not really looking at individual one, but you are looking at group of dipoles. So you will not take individual one, you will take them as a group charge. So this delta L and delta A are pertaining to those small region or small enough to be considered as microscopic, but large enough to consider several magnetic dipoles together. So with that, volume will be delta L and into delta A. This is tiny enough for us to define magnetization vector M. So we can say delta V is equals to delta L into delta A, and the magnetic dipole moment, equivalent magnetic dipole moment, is QM into delta L, right? So this is exactly the same expression that you would have written for the electric matter. So you have magnetic material QM delta L being the dipole moment, and this of course is actually equals to current into delta A. So this is current that is carried by the loop, multiply the delta A, that would be magnitude of dipole moment. So when you actually look at this, lots of tiny magnets inside a magnetic material, you will see that the north and south pole essentially cancel out each other, and what you are left with some sort of big dipole with all fictitious charges at the top and all negative charges on the bottom. Okay, so this top charges are north pole and the bottom charges are south pole. So what is magnetic moment? Magnetic moment is QM delta L. What would be the magnetization vector? M. So the magnitude of vector M will be QM delta L divided by delta L delta A. Okay, So this delta L will get cancelled out. So I left with Qm by delta A. And if you consider the total magnetic charge, that this was for single dipole or a small enough region of dipole. If you consider total area, right, and total number of charges, total charges as Qm, which is sum of all the tiny dipole charges, and the overall area A, which is sum of all the delta A's. Sum of all delta A is capital A. What you essentially get is a magnetic surface charge density, because this charge per unit area. So you get a magnetic surface charge density, and if you look at the top and bottom surface of the bar magnet, you would see them populated with magnitude charges with a magnetic charge density rho. You will see them as magnetic charge density rho Sm, and the south pole is also populated with a negative magnetic charge, or with magnetic charge density of minus rho Sm. A similar equation can be obtained in terms of current as well, because the magnetic moment is I into delta A. Just for this magnetic moment, let us put M subscript the current carried by magnetic dipole. Okay, so this would be Im into delta A divided by delta L into delta A, right? So if you look at this one, you will be given by Im by delta L, and when you consider the entire length of the material, this would actually becomes Im by L. So what is Im by L? What are the unit of Im by L? The unit of Im by L is current per meter, and this is preciously the sheet charge that we talk about. Okay, so sheet charge, sheet current of measured in amperes per meter. In another equivalent way of looking at magnetic material. So where does this come from? This actually come from imagining tiny loops, right? All these loops are in the interior of magnetic material, cancel with each other, leaving you the dipole at the surface. Okay, which means an equivalent long solenoid with a current. So with current such that the current per, or if there are number of turns n, then number of turns per meter into I will be the current enclosed per meter, right? So this would be NIM by L will be the current that is enclosed up here. Okay, so we will look at some relationship between B, mu, N and M. So we have previously introduced you with two fields B and H. We didn't really say anything about this relationship between B and H, which we said that, well, in free space it so happened that B is equals to mu naught H. Okay, H is measured in terms of amperes per meter, and if you remember, B is measured in Webers per meter, which was equivalently of the Gauss, which also had an equivalent of Tesla. Okay, so this was traditional thing that we have introduced you, but we didn't really stress up what was the relationship between B and H, except telling you that this is equals to mu naught H. What we will actually do is we can define experimental situation, or we can design an experiment which will actually brings up relationship between B and H for a free space or for a magnetic matter. So to do that, let us consider a solenoid, and then you wind up solenoid with a wire. Okay, and the material that solenoid is made up of is air. So if you assume that the material made up of toroid. So the material that is making up toroid is actually air or a free space. Then the magnetic field we saw from the application of Ampere law, or we would apply Ampere law, will give you magnetic field as Ni by L, because there is only externally applied current I, and H naught is N into I by L. And because in the free space B is related to H by a factor of mu naught, so B naught is equals to mu naught Ni by L. Now take the toroid, but except filling the toroid instead with the free space, fill it with a magnetic material. That is taken as magnetic material bent inside in the form of rod, and then wind up it with a current carrying wire of same turns, and then apply the same current. So applying the same current, what will happen? Field produced must be by a two different reason. There is a field that is produced because of external current, this current which is flowing through this wire, which is again mu Ni by L. Okay, no surprise out there. But this tiny loop inside the magnetic material itself, which will align, because this is the permanent magnet, will align, and it will contribute to extra field of its own, and that extra field of its own will be N into Im by L. Okay, note that I am not put mu here. Okay, we don't have mu here, we just want to say Im is the current or current produced because of tiny current look inside the magnetic material. And if there are N turns, or L is the length, there is N turns and L is the length, and total H produced will be Ni by L plus Nim by L. So this would should actually be equals to field B. So one second, let us actually write down this straightly different manner. So initially let us put mu naught out here. So B is equals to mu naught into Ni by L, just to focus on field produced by this current. So this is actually H field. So instead of writing this B by mu naught, you could write down as H field. So H field is no mu with H is supposed to be independent of magnetic material. So H is given by Ni by L plus Nil by L, right? So H field will be equals to B by mu naught. So we assume that H and B are still characterized by mu naught. Of course, we will find that this is not exactly the same H naught and B naught. H and B by mu naught, and this particular expression which will gives you B as mu naught Ni by L. No surprise here, but you will get mu naught Nim by L. So now look, B and H must be related in a way that this is mu naught Ni by L is my mu naught H, and we have already seen that it is equals to H field. So B is equals to mu naught H plus something else. That is something else is magnetization. So what we have here is, since there is a mu naught sitting inside, so we need to multiply this one with mu naught as well. So what we actually have is a relationship which says that B is equals to mu naught H plus M. Equivalently, H can be written as B minus mu naught M by mu naught. So this is no longer magnetization, that is in free space. Where H is there, that would be equals to B by mu naught. So this is in free space. In the presence of magnetic material, the magnetic field would actually change from simple value of B to B minus mu naught into M divided by mu naught, which is equals to H. So in most cases, just like the case of dielectric material, the relationship between M and H is linear. Okay. Well, the magnetic material actually possesses even more exotic property, but we will not go into those property at this moment. Okay, so M is linearly related to H, and this relationship is defined by the parameter chi m. This chi m is the magnetic susceptibility, just like you had seen that P is equals to epsilon naught at because of whatever the reason. So epsilon naught times the chi E plus electric field. Okay, so we in fact evaluate relationship between B and E. I'm sure that it was linear for small electric field, right? We look at electric polarization in terms of atomic polarization. So similarly, we will look at the relationship between M and H for two classes of material called magnetic, diamagnetic and paramagnetic. So we will keep discussion brief but give you the basic idea of those material. So you have magnetization vector equals to susceptibility into H. Okay. Now before doing that, finally let us look at relationship between B and H. B is mu naught into H plus mu naught into M, but if you take mu is equals to susceptibility into H, it will becomes mu naught 1 plus susceptibility into H. Okay, so and this is equals to mu r, the relative permeability. And this relative permeability has different value for different types of material. For ferromagnetic material, which are what you normally means when you call a magnetic material, mu r is very large compared to 1. It is very large for mu, and this is the reason why they can actually generate magnetic field. Of course, above a certain temperature, ferromagnets lose your magnetism, but we do not worry about that. It turns out that all material in nature are intrinsically diamagnets. Diamagnets are characterized by having mu r value actually less than but very close to 1. When you carry mu r being less than 1, when the susceptibility is negative, but it is very close to 0. So the overall mu r is very close to 1, but it is actually slightly less than 1. It is about like 0.999. That would be value of diamagnet. And finally you will have a paramagnet. Paramagnet have a value of mu r which is greater than, very slightly greater than 1. And chi m is positive here, but it is very nearly equals to 0. Okay, so if you look at graph of chi and H for diamagnet is being negative, it's negative. For paramagnet it is positive, and for ferromagnet it will be large value. Okay, this is how different difference between three class of material exist. Okay, that's all for today's lecture. Thank you.